fast down a dead end street. You told me take it slow, baby, take it slow. Was it gonna last? I could feel the heat, and my mind was racing, not a place to go. Running on empty, I got nothing left. Staring right at me, you said take a breath. Don't let me go. Don't let me go. Don't let me go. Don't let me go. I don't know where I lost it, but I can't catch the beat. I don't know where I lost it, but I can't catch the beat. I don't know where I lost it, but I'm so checked out now. I don't know where I lost it, but all I hear is doubt. I'm running on empty, I got nothing left. Staring right at me, you said take a breath. Don't let me go. 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 I don't know where I lost it, but I'm so checked out now. I don't know where I lost it, but all I hear is doubts. I don't know where I lost it, but I'm so checked out now. I don't know where I lost it, but all I hear is doubts. Hollywood to Florida, she never touched the brakes. Parked a car right on my lawn and slept inside for days. Oh, the way she's living. Oh, the way she lives. She met a boy in Miami last summer on the yacht. He told her she should call him up when LA gets too hot. Oh, the way she's living. Oh, the way she got games that don't mind playing. She don't know that I'm not staying. Meet me at the spot on the corner that reminds you of the bars by I won't say tomorrow.
Welcome back, Season 2 premiere of Alone Together, and a special DC Design Week collaboration. We're excited to be here, and we're excited to share with you how we write a song a week and how we're creative on tight deadlines. So be sure to comment, say hello, and let us know where you're watching from, and join in the conversation as we're going. We'll be sure to check the comments as well. If you have any questions, we'll try to answer all of those. If this is your first time watching Alone Together, let me tell you just a little bit about it, how it came about, and how we make it happen. So Alone Together started during quarantine because we wanted to keep writing music, but we couldn't be together in the same ways we had been before for all of our songwriting. So we came up with this idea of basically music telephone, where Phil would write a song idea, he'd record vocals, synths, guitars, whatever he thinks the song needs. Then he'd send it on to me. I would add the drums, percussion, whatever I think the song needs. I wouldn't send it back to Philip, so he has no idea what I've added. I'd send it on to our guitarist, Benji. Benji would add guitar, vocals, synths, whatever he wants to add to the song. Again, wouldn't share it with me and Philip. And then he'd send it on to our bassist, Tamir. Tamir would have bass, guitar, whatever else he thinks the song might need. Again, not even Ben's heard that. He'll send that on to our mix engineer, Nate. Nate will mix the song and he might produce it, maybe add a few more parts if he thinks it needs it. And then he'll send that song to us and we'll get on a live stream and we'll listen to it with you for the first time. So in a few minutes, you're going to be hearing our brand new song, DC Baby, with us for the first time that we've heard it. We're really excited. This week we did have David Combs of Bad Moves also join us in this process. I've not heard what David's added. I'm really excited to hear that. And we also had Luke James Schaefer and Saidavna join us to add some extra vocals. So bringing in as many DC voices as we can. So we're going to listen to the song with you in just a few minutes. You'll get to see our reactions. Please give us your reactions in the comments below as well. And then we're going to break down the song a little bit. We're going to talk about our writing process, our creativity process, how we use deadlines, how we work when we don't have a lot of time, and how we logistically write these parts. So it's cool. We'll actually play the parts actually isolated out so you can hear those as well. And if you have any questions along the way, be sure to ask those. But without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in the boys. Hey, hey! Welcome back.
Hello.
Hello.
Everybody, this
Season
is
2.
David, Season 2, starting with a guest right off the bat. We're excited to be back.
Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
As Phil mentioned, if you caught him on Phil's pre-live stream over on Facebook, David is in the awesome band Bad Moves, and they just put out a really great record that we're really excited about. So we're excited to have them on with us today. Untenable. Oh, man. It's awesome. Okay, so the theme for what we're doing today is all about deadlines. How do we use deadlines to be more creative? Obviously, a big part of what we're doing with Alone Together requires us to be pretty strict on our deadlines, to be very structured with our thinking, because we got to write a song and produce a song in a week. So we always start with a question. This week our question is going to be, how do you use deadlines to be more creative? And Phil, I'm going to start with you. Song will be starting in 2.5 minutes. That timer's not working today for some reason.
Well, the way that I use deadlines, or I think what I frame it as for myself, is I am encouraged by using deadlines because it helps me not lose my edge. So if I have a song that I've been sitting with for a while, I'll often maybe worry about how it might come across to every single person in the whole world, and that's not a bad thing, but at the same time, sometimes like the punch of a lyric can get buffed out if you have more time to sit with it and think about all the ways that it could be misconstrued or whatever. That was kind of the case with this week. I won't really spoil how it got there, but definitely first thought, best thought. I didn't have enough time. I had other things going on, and I just had to send it off. And so it helped me not lose my edge, as James Murphy would say.
I love that. That's really interesting. That's really interesting because you don't have time to second guess. You just got to roll with it. You just got to go with it. That's awesome. Be sure to let us know in the comments below. How do you use deadlines to be more creative? How do you use time constraints to be more creative? I'm going to kick it over to David. David, how do you use deadlines to be more creative?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo some of what Philip said, that, given enough time to be as perfectionist as I can be, I could probably stretch out any kind of writing process indefinitely. So creating schedules for myself, or for like within the band with Bad Moves, like being like, yeah, we could jam on every idea we have for a long time, but we want to have an album out by this time. So we got to work backwards and be like, by this time we want to have X songs demoed, and then, it's got to be more than enough for a record in case we want to cut one or two or something like that, and that just actually gets it done in a way that I mean, without it, it wouldn't happen for me.
Sure.
I guess the other thing is doing kind of daily exercises and things like that. It's not quite the same as having a deadline for a finished song, but this project was a little bit like that. It's you just have to do something today. It might not be the most polished version of the thing, but because you set yourself a goal to I'll do things where I'll be I'm trying to write one demo every day for 30 days, and if 90% of them are garbage, it's well, actually I probably still wrote 3 or 4 good songs that month, which is more than usual, or song ideas that I could expand on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that actually leads straight into what I was thinking, which is that deadlines, maybe they make it harder to do some things. I may not be able to get the most polished, perfect version of something, but at the end of the day, for example, with this song, we weren't writing a song a week before we started this process, before we started setting a deadline and saying, hey, at the end of this week, we're going to have a new song every single week. But because we're doing this now, we're being more creative in that we're literally just finishing more. A song is only as good as it is done in a lot of ways. People don't even know your art if you don't finish it and get it out. And I think a deadline has been, at least for me, in the same way that you said, it's the only way I can actually get my art out in the world is to say, hey, on this day it's going to be out in the world. Otherwise, I'll just work on it and work on it and work on it. Or you end up not working on it because you could always work on it the next day. So having a deadline actually forces me to sit down and get on it and start making that progress towards finishing. And I think that's huge. So not to piggyback, but I just piggybacked on your on what you said, David.
Please.
So Benji, let's hear about you. How do you use deadlines to be more creative?
Colin, thanks for having me.
Benji, thanks for joining us.
So yeah, I mean, I think that this is kind of just a common consensus around all of us. It's really about finishing things. There is for me, the most important thing with the deadline is you kind of force yourself to get over the fact that it needs to be the most perfect thing that's ever been creative, because there is no perfection. That's not real. Perfection does not exist. It's just a goal to kind of shoot for. But at a certain point, yeah, you have to put the guitar down, you have to put the paintbrush down, you have to just say it's done now. And so to sort of give you that time to that sort of end goal to be well, if it needs to be ready to go at this point, just pushes away all the little tiny tinkering, which is stuff that you could do forever, but inside is not important. And it really lets you prioritize and just get stuff down. So with these tracks, usually I'll take them and I'll immediately just I won't sit down and listen to it a bunch of times, try out a bunch of different guitars. I have one guitar sitting next to me. I pick up the one guitar, I try to screw around on top of it. If that doesn't work, then I switch to a different guitar. I don't hunt for the song I don't hunt for the guitar for the song. I let the guitar tell me whether or not it's right for the song. Same thing with synth sounds. I just I quickly run through them and then bang, it's there. And that gives you more time to actually do the fun creative stuff, and actually write. So
what's kind of funny about that too is I've often done something like that and then later on I'll be like, oh, I need to go back to that synth sound. It was so great. And then I'm like, oh, I barely that took me like 5 seconds to create.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But then you like get hooked on it once you've used it before.
That's the power of limitation in the second way. Like, because you're limited in time, you have to be limited in your choices. But ultimately, that helps you use the tools kind of the way I think they should be used, right? Like, you shouldn't spend forever obsessed about which guitar do I use to write this part when you haven't even written the part yet. Like, but I think sometimes we can get carried away in the minutia, and when you don't have time to obsess over the minutia. Well, so our timer didn't work today for some reason, but here we are, more than 3 minutes later, and we are going to listen to our brand new song, DC Baby. And then after we listen to it, we're going to break it down a little bit. We're going to go kind of section by section, break out, solo some of these pieces, and we're going to tell you how we wrote it and how we write songs and how we collaborate creatively and at a distance. As you can tell, none of us are in the same room right now. Believe it or not.
And we've never heard this song before. This was not even mixed by any of us. Nate is our mix engineer, and he passed it on to us. And so if you're just joining us for the first time, we were going to watch us listen to the song for the first time.
Yep. So let us know in the comments below what you think of this song. And in 3, 2, 1.
I fell asleep on the green line on the branch avenue, waiting to go home. Hey DC baby, take me home. Deep Maryland, I'm wide awake now. Take me back just a little farther across the Anacostia. I wanna feel that DC heat and hear the sounds of the city beneath my feet. What's it cost to you? And if they close all the DuPont bars and all the interns get in their cars, we'll still be singing on U Street, singing on U Street. That's where we'll meet. I fell asleep on the green line on the branch avenue, waiting to go home. Hey DC baby, take me home.
Like it's just another day to you when you hear the things people try to say to you when they don't know shit about your city. I try and tell you what it means to me when I hear the way people talk about it, see, but I know you wouldn't get it. 36 weeks on the road, I'm coming up the last stretch, oh. When you see it,
I fell asleep
and the city
on the green line on the branch avenue, waiting
and I'll see you on
to go. Hey DC baby, take me home. DC baby, take me home. DC baby, take me DC baby, take me
All right. Wow. Wow.
DC baby.
I'll tell you, the last time I heard that song, it did not quite sound like that. That's awesome.
Did not sound like that to me either.
Oh man, that's awesome. Thank you all for all the comments.
That's cool.
If you have any questions about this song, let us know, because we're going to jump into talking a little bit about how we wrote this song. Wow, that is crazy already. And what's the most surprising
That is a
thing?
lot of a shift.
Yeah, a lot of shift. I know that I could tell from David's reaction, some vocals got moved around. You were like, ooh, didn't expect that there.
He loves to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, man, that's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Phil, and he's going to tell us about how he wrote like the initial foundation for the song. So it's going to be playing in the background quietly. Phil, could you tell us a little bit about how you wrote this song?
Absolutely. Well, first, I think we said this up top, but thank you so much to DC Design Week for having us. I'm going to tie this into their theme for the week. Thank you, to everyone out there who's part of this week, making it possible. And so I've been thinking a lot about like tying it back into how to be creative on a deadline. So another tip, not to like make this too instructional, but that I've been thinking about as we were working on this is like never start from scratch. I have so many notes on my phone that I'll look at that will be included, or I'll include things that I love, but I also include things that I don't like in that note, because that gives me kind of a jumping off point. And so for me, sometimes I just feel like songs really go on in their song structure in a bad way. Like a song has sort of a natural progression, and at about 2 minutes, this song felt done to me, or it felt like it needed to go in another direction. So I tacked on the DC baby take me home part at the end, and it made it so that it was perfect for us to get other voices included. So that was like something that I've been thinking about a lot, is don't just repeat the same parts over and over. You don't need to have like 4 verses in your song just to get it to 4 minutes long or whatever. Just make it the length that it needs to be. And so that was kind of a jumping off point for me, was, all right, let's let this little, vocal part go as long as it needs to, which is really just about 2 minutes. And then let's see if I can take it in a totally different direction. And, for any musicians out there, I basically took the chords that we were ending on, which was E, and then just stayed on E a lot longer. And then I think it moves to A, and just something really simple, but I didn't like reinvent the wheel. I just kind of took the base for what the song was, and then kind of added a new part on, that DC baby take me home part doesn't need to be any longer than a minute or so, but it was just a perfect way to ride out the song. And so that's kind of how I thought of it, and how I thought of the structure. And like you may have heard, Nate moved a few things around, but I'm glad that the song structure basically stayed. The order stayed the same pretty much.
That's awesome. So the big thing you're saying in there that I haven't been thinking about is like, let it speak for itself, and also change up the structures from your go-tos, and just kind of bring in different elements. And in this case, include, we got extra creativity from including more people, and that's harnessing others' creativity. I think is such a great tip.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, so what you're hearing right now is what I got from Phil. He had a couple more guitar parts and kind of a drum idea that he was toying with. But I'll go and switch over to my scene, where I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I added. So this song obviously is really a rock song, really rocking drums. And so they're not very complicated. They're not very complex, but they're just really driving, really rocking. And that hi-hat, there's like a digital hi-hat in there that Phil had written, and I kind of changed it around a little bit because I wanted to have... I often like shakers and things to add that continuous energy. But something about that really digital, really fast hi-hat just was perfect energy for this song. And it allowed my drum part to be a little less complex and just a little bit more driving. So the other thing I did is that I'm playing with a lot of syncopated rhythms. So like you can hear in this, it's often on like the end of the beat. So it just changes up the rhythm a little bit, and it kind of pulls you forward, is the way I always feel about syncopation. Is it pulls you forward into the next beat a little bit more. And then I don't know, I actually got a little complicated in a couple parts. Like this part here is just a little bit of a a weird way that I would approach drum writing. And then the other thing, I haven't really talked about that a lot, but because this is all about doing things on a shorter time frame, we have been harnessing the power of modern technology. So I got into recording music 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and a big part of that for me as a drummer was learning how to record drums. It's a huge undertaking. It's a lot of mics and a lot of tuning and different things that go into it, a lot of editing to make drums sound good and natural and huge. But when we started this series, I knew that I couldn't always take all the time that it takes to set up and mic drums and set up and edit drums and do all of that. I mean, those are hours of extra time. So I've actually been doing all of the Alone Together songs with all digital drums and just Logic drums. I didn't want to spend hours and hours, and I didn't have time to spend hours and hours trying to find the perfect samples and the, different things that the internet possesses. So I took what I had and I figured out how I could make it sound the best that I possibly could. And that's what we've been using. And it's totally changed my whole perspective on digital drums specifically, but also modern resources. This is kind of like Ben spoke to earlier. If I was really dead set on I have to record this analog, I have to do whatever, I wouldn't be able to do all of these songs. I wouldn't be able to write all of this music. And so at the end of the day, that recognizing that limitation and using it as an opportunity to learn a new skill, but then a skill that is much, much, much faster, I've really harnessed that, and that's been a huge part of my creative process. And then additionally, Phil, in some cases, will send an idea that already has a digital drum idea on it, and I'll use that kind of as the baseline for inspiration, but then I try to think, well, how would I play this as an actual, not as an actual drummer, but as myself as a drummer, and not just using like the loop that Logic would give me to use. I'll take it and I'll try to put my spin on it and harness my own creative flair on it. So that's what we're hearing, just rocking as hard as I can in the background. And I took it and I sent it on to Benji, and let's hear what Benji added. All right, Benji is back. And
hey, Colin, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining, Benji. Tell us about your rocking on this song.
Yeah, so this is one of those ones where it's really interesting to kind of hear where it went afterwards, because kind of where I started this song was in a really I kind of went for like moderately heavy guitars, but like kind of inspired by like some of the like heavier emo bands, which is like that one guitar, I think it's on your left ear, that's like just doing lots of like 2-note chords on the higher end. So I kind of went down that whole road, and I used a lot of like reverbs and delays and effects and stuff, and made a very kind of swirly guitar part. And I put in some really like, I don't know, tracks, because I kind of but like what I sort of heard was like, oh, so there are these like sparkly synths, so what if the guitar kind of enveloped them? And then what seems to have happened afterwards is what Nate did was he saw that and he said, okay, cool, but what if there was actually like more of a driving force to it? Because the one thing that my guitar parts kind of lost because they were so swirly and massive is they didn't really have a punch sometimes. They didn't feel like, now listening back, I'm like, oh, they didn't have quite as much of like that sort of rhythmic feel. And so what he did was he basically took the cloudy parts, instead of making them like background textures and stuff, he turned them into lead parts that really cut through in certain ways and that really stand out, which is really interesting. I don't know, it's really interesting to hear where it turned up, because I was thinking in a very different direction when I like sat down and recorded these guitars, but they ended up still coming out in a way that worked out, which was really cool.
Yeah.
So it was like more of a and it was also like nice because I used a guitar that I don't usually use, because the one guitar I had in the room was a guitar that I don't usually use for Broke Royal stuff, but I decided, you know what, work with the constraint, don't worry about finding one, and just kind of make it work.
Yeah, and limit your options and get the most out of what you got.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome.
So yeah, it was this one is interesting it's really like I'm still kind of like getting my head around what happened as like as I went in, because I'm like, oh, that's different, oh, I put a harmony thing here, and that wasn't there, but then in another part the melody isn't there and the harmony is there, so it's like, oh, he like pick and chose different parts and everything. So
Well,
I don't know, it's really cool to hear someone like kind of tool around to find the best out of what I gave there to make it sit in there.
Yeah, and make it all work together and be creative in their own right. You know, mixing is an art
exactly.
form in
Like
itself.
it's its own sort of like, you know, songwriting. Like, I mean, there's an interesting series on YouTube where this producer, Andrew Huang, he takes literally like 3 other producers and they're all given the same sample, and they all have to create a track out of that sample. And I feel like that's kind of what Nate gets an opportunity to do here. Is he gets a lot of free reign. Is like, I have all these pieces, but I can throw in, I don't know, backing vocals in a different part, just cut down to one guitar, just stitch things together. It's really
full-on
cool.
creative process. Well, so Tamir unfortunately could not join us in person today, but he sent in a wonderful ASMR style video that we're going to play for you now, where he talks a little bit about this process for him.
Hey guys, it's me, Ty. I'm at work. So this song was a lot of fun to work on. First of all, big shouts to Fizz. He laid down a really solid foundation for me to work with. So when I sat down and just listened to the parts over and over again, I was able to add my little spin on it. Just some tweaks, twists and turns here and there. It was a lot of fun. This song's pretty like upbeat, a lot of big guitar parts, and like a lot of just like downstrokes, which makes the metalhead in me very, very happy. So that's fun. Also, when it comes to creativity on a deadline, I find it helps me the most to just sort of breathe. Self-care is the big thing, I think, when it comes to working on anything on a deadline. So, I think just breathing and trying to take the weight off of it a little bit before actually working on it helps me a lot. It's different for everybody, but that's what's helped me a lot. That helped me in this particular instance. So, that's all I got. I gotta go back to work, but see you all next week.
All right. So we have David here, and I'll play his section in just a second, but I want to take 1 second to answer this question from Justin. So, deadline aside, how do you find the creative voice when you're in a rut or having a block? I think that's a great question. For me personally, and we can all kind of address this as in the future too if we want, but for me personally, I know my biggest thing is bringing in other people. Bring in other people to help kind of shed their creative view on things and lend their perspective. And that's what's cool about this process, is that we're naturally collaborating. Maybe I might not nail this part of the drum part, but someone else can tweak it or add more to it if they want. But then also in other situations where it's not telephone style, you could bring them in to just truly collaborate and work with you as you're writing the parts. And I think personally that's my biggest way to get out of a creative rut, is just to bring in other voices and bring in other people. So, David, I'm going to play what you sent us in the background, and tell me a little bit about this song and writing and your creative process and all that.
Well, first, I just want to completely agree with what you just said about collaborating. I feel like, to the person who was asking about being in a rut, there's definitely been times where I have no idea what to write about, but if I have somebody that I'm working with, they might be like, I have this thing, but I don't know how to say it. And I'll be like, that wasn't my thing, but maybe I can help you figure out how to say it. And that is a way to start working on a creative thing, and then might spin me off in another direction.
Sure.
So, with this song, my assignment was basically to do a second verse. And in the first verse, there is a section that's like when they close all the DuPont bars and the interns get in their cars, we'll be singing on U Street.
Yeah.
Which to me, I think maybe it wasn't even Philip's intention to write it as like a pre-chorus, but like the way the instrumentation came around it, and it kind of goes to halftime. I was like, oh, that's like a pre-chorus. And that was sort of like the thing that I was like, I want to like write something that echoes this. And and that was like my starting point, and I worked backwards from there to the rest of the verse, which then I realized that the second verse was half as long as the first verse, and that I didn't actually have a pre-chorus to work with, so I was bad and I broke the rules.
Welcome, we love it.
But I think that actually in the final version of the song, he because there was 8 bars missing, the part that I had written for the pre-chorus kind of ends up being like an overlapping like counter melody to the chorus.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So, whether it was intentional or not, it's like an interesting spin on it, which was cool to hear. And then like, I'll say like when I was plugging into this, I was like trying to like figure out where I could land in this, how I could take this little section of the song and make it my own or something. And I did between a little bit of the musical, like some of the synthy stuff that is going on, and just thinking of other iconic songs about DC, I like start thinking about that Postal Service song. And
yes,
again, it didn't turn out this way, but I was like, and I just ended up like going on a tangent listening to some Postal Service, and like,
Nice.
I was like, like some of the strongest parts of these songs are the kind of like, male sounding voice, female sounding voice counterparts. And so like I like got in touch with my bandmates in Bad Moves, Katie and Emma, and I was like, oh, it's going to be great. I'm going to sing the verse, and one of them can sing the pre-chorus. And then I made a plan, and it didn't end up happening because of logistics. So like, but so like, and then I sang the pre-chorus, which ends up being this counter melody for the chorus in this final version, which I was like, it's not really like the best suited thing for my voice. But then Nate, is it?
Yeah, Nate.
He did a great job cleaning up my voice.
It sounds awesome. And your voice is so cool, man. I love your voice. I think it's great.
Thank you.
And I get, this is an example of where in some ways it's a limitation that maybe we couldn't get those people in because of the deadline and because of the tight time constraints. But then in another sense, we ended up with something, we pushed ourselves and ended up with something a little bit different because of that, So it's like this, yeah, there's a conduit, but there's also now this great piece that's done this week because of that. And, when we're doing albums and we're doing things that are longer form, we would make the time to make that all happen. But that's really cool, man. And it sounds awesome. I'm stoked on it. So we're going to listen to it again all together here in just a minute. But I do want to go ahead and bring in Philip to talk about the lyrics behind the song, because for all you DC people, there's a lot of DC lyrics that I think you'll enjoy. So I'm going to punch over to Philip. All right.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say first, David's additions were awesome, and I'm so glad that you were on that same wavelength. I had been thinking about other DC songs that I've heard before, and specifically like in the indie rock genre. There are a lot of songs, but that's sort of where this thing started. And The District Sleeps Tonight by the Postal Service, which features Ben Gibbard, was one of the ones that came to mind. And so on the second half of the first verse, I thought I would throw in some harmonies that sounded real Death Cabby to me. So I love that you picked that up, and like it was a little bit on the "This is the New Year" type like harmony thing. So anyways, that's really cool that came through, even though it was not explicitly something that I mentioned to you. And I had this written down. Like I said, I just always have notes that I'm referencing. They have voice memos that they'll be linked to on my phone. So to answer the question from earlier, if you're in a dry spell, if you have 50 ideas written down from the last 2 years, you'll always have something that can kind of spark your imagination. And what really struck me about this one was I had that first line of the song, and it struck me as very out of time. I haven't ridden the metro since the pandemic hit. So this idea of like being on the Green Line at Branch Avenue when I wrote that, I thought it was just really like funny and kind of cheeky to be like, oh, I'm just across the border. You know, I'm in Maryland. I'm so far from home because I live in D.C. But then now when I read it back, I was like, oh my God, that's so weird. That's like, it's like a Rip Van Winkle situation. If you got back off of a metro now that you'd fallen asleep on, you'd be like in a different city. So like when I wrote that, it started one way, and when I finished it, and by the time everybody else got to work on it, it was, you know, the city's not that there's been a mass exodus or anything, it's just the world is experiencing a crazy global crisis, and so things are really it was a sort of a interesting time capsule for me to go through on my own, and then the rest of it I just kind of tried to pepper in some things about DC and make it real, and you know, no shade to the DuPont bars, but you know, I think people who don't really live in DC, they're just kind of spending a season there. That might be where they hang out, and then there are other places where the rest of us can be found. So
It's true. And you got a few of those references in there. It's awesome. It's awesome. All right, so we'll bring everybody back in, and
I have a comment.
Yep.
Actually,
Please.
First of all, Colin, thanks for having me here.
Hey, you know what? Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
And truly, thank you for everybody watching at home.
Yeah, thank you to everybody watching. But yeah, I actually, so that question that was asked keeps on coming back, and there's some interesting things which I think it was funny how it like almost got touched on, but it didn't get kind of explicitly said, which is like, if you're in a creative rut, listen to music. Like that's like super important. Like, you know, go and like find something that inspires you and like find out what makes it tick and try to figure out where that goes in. So like, you know, Philip took that and like changed it into like he was like, oh well, I like this harmony, you know, and then Dave, they went in and it was a whole thing where it's like, oh, I get the same vibe, I'm gonna listen to this and just see what inspiration I can get, and even if I can't execute it exactly how I want, like I still have that tip off there, you know,
that inspiration.
This is a thing that I recorded a whole interview that then did not get saved correctly to my computer, and I lost for a YouTube video I am making right now about songwriting, and I was interviewing a local artist, and like, you know, like his main tip for the number one tip of like how to get better at songwriting is listen to more music. And like for me, that's just the most powerful thing I can do is like, if I'm stuck, I'm gonna turn on something that makes me want to make music. Because like when you get stuck, like I kind of feel like the point is like you get stuck and you kind of don't want to make the music anymore.
Yeah.
You kind of get into this space where you're like, I'm tired, it's boring, it's not making me happy, I'm not excited about this. And so to get out of that, you have to put yourself into that situation that's like, well, why was I excited? Oh, because I wanted to make something that sounded like this. I want to make something that sounds just as good as this. And it can be really hard because sometimes you can get down on yourself because it's like, oh, this person's so much better than me. And like, but you know, you kind of have to push through that and get to, it's like, but it still inspires me and it still makes me happy. So that's just my take there. Thanks for having me.
Find things that inspire you and appreciate them and use them to motivate you. Yeah. The best authors are the best readers, Justin. Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Put that back up there.
Very nice.
Well, so we are.
Can I say real quick
go ahead.
as we wrap?
Yeah, please.
To the theme of people that inspire us, Saidavna and Luke James Schaefer both contributed vocals for this. The theme of DC Design Week is lifting voices, and we got to do that in a very meta or perhaps literal way on this project. And so Saidavna and Luke James Schaefer are both wonderful DC artists. Please check both of them out wherever you put music in your ear holes.
And also Bad Moves, David from Bad Moves. Be sure to check them out. Oh gosh, Phil. Oh yeah.
Oh, we got the
Look
plug.
at that. Yes, that album is so great. It's so great. Okay. So
good stuff.
We are going to be
Thanks,
back
guys.
on Thursday nights this season. So Thursday nights at 8:30 p.m. starting next Thursday. We got another brand new song for you. We're going to be back every Thursday at 8:30 p.m. So be sure to check that out. YouTube, we're going to be on YouTube live from now on. So be sure to check that out. And anything else before we play the song one final time for the people?
Oh yeah, Colin, thanks for having me.
Oh,
Thanks for
Benji,
having me, Colin.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You know
Colin.
Okay, but actually, thanks for having me. 'Cause I can actually say that. Thank you, guys. It was fun to be involved.
Oh, it was great to
It's
have
fun
you.
having you. It was
And
good
thank
stuff.
you to Rebecca Silverstein for
Oh, yeah, also
A,
thank you,
contributing
Rebecca.
vocals on the sly, and B, helping us out in the comment section.
I knew those were Rebecca's vocals, but I didn't want to say it.
And thank you, DC Design
back
Week,
in
for
there.
having us and for putting on such an awesome week for creatives. And
Truly.
on that note, we're going to go to the final scene and we're going to play the song for you one more time. Let us know what you think of it in the comments, and we'll see you next Thursday. Thank you, David. Thank you, Saidavna. Thank you, Luke James Schaefer. Thanks, DC Design Week. Thank you, Ben, specifically. And anybody that I might have forgotten to mention, you all are wonderful, and we'll see you next week.
I fell asleep on the green line on the Branch Avenue, waiting to go home. Hey DC baby, take me home. Deep Maryland, I'm wide awake now. Take me back just a little farther north. Across the Anacostia, I wanna feel that DC heat and hear the sounds of the city beneath my feet. What's it cost to you? And if they close all the DuPont bars and all the interns get in their cars, we'll still be singing on U Street, singing on U Street. That's where we'll meet. I fell asleep on the green line on the Branch Avenue, waiting to go home. Hey DC baby, take me home.
Like it's just another day to you when you hear the things people try to say to you when they don't know shit about your city. I try and tell you what it means to me when I hear the way people talk about it, see, but I know you wouldn't get it till you're 6 weeks on the road and coming up the last stretch of when you see it.
I
Then
fell
everything
asleep
and the city
on the green line on the Branch Avenue, waiting
and I'll see you on
to go. Hey DC baby, take me home.